Let me interrupt you, Miles. You're saying that every person that's born on the face of this earth, God has a plan uniquely designed just for them.
Absolutely.
You believe that?
Every human being, whether they know it or not, and that's what's so important.
And their assignment is unique to them.
Ignorance of purpose does not cancel purpose. Because you don't know why you exist doesn't mean you don't have a reason for existence. Matter of fact, until you discover your personal reason for being born, your life will be unfulfilled and you will live as an experiment. You'll keep trying things. Here's a statement I always make, and that is the greatest tragedy in life is not death. I found something more tragic than death. Now, people think that death is the ultimate tragedy.
Not much after that.
That is not true. I believe
not
that
in this life.
The greatest tragedy in life, Dave and Barbara, is not death. It's actually life without a purpose. It is more tragic to be alive
go through all of your
and
life,
not know why,
never have discovered why you're
than
here.
to be dead
Absolutely.
and not know life.
That's good.
You know, in the book of Ecclesiastes, one of the most amazing books written by King Solomon, it's actually a book, it's a sarcasm. A sarcasm, you know, is really a document that makes fun out of life.
Sure.
It actually makes men recognize that what they're doing is foolish. And here's what Solomon says in that book. He says, a man without purpose, a stillborn baby is better off than that man. For the stillborn baby doesn't know where he comes from, never arrives, and goes back. He says, but it's more tragic for man to be born from the womb, live on earth, spend years on the planet, and then die and never knew why he came.
That's true.
A stillborn baby, Solomon says, is better off than that man.
Understanding your purpose is so important.
The greatest tragedy in life, therefore, is not death. It's actually life without a purpose. I like the way Solomon opened the book. He says, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. It's a chasing after the wind. And then he says, all men come and go, and the sun rises and sets, and they go to nothing. He says, life is empty. The King James used the word vanity. Vanity means empty of purpose. And when life has no purpose, then it's like chasing after the wind, Solomon says. It's an exercise in frustration.
That's right.
So people are getting up every morning. They go to the same traffic jam. They go to the job they hate. They work for money that they work more than. They work for people they don't like. They do things they don't want to do. And they go home to a house that's full of friction. They watch TV programs that depress them. And then they go to a bed and sleep back to back with their spouse and don't speak to them. And then wake up the next morning and get stuck in the same traffic again.
Do it all over
and
again.
they do that for 30, 40 years. Then they retire from a job that is glad they left and give them a clock and a rocking chair to rock themselves away until they die. And in the end, all they did was work to make a living, but they never lived. That's tragedy.
That's it. That is very tragic.
You were not born just to make a living. You were not born just to pay bills. You were not born just to maintain rent. What a tragedy. There's got to be more to your being here on this planet than that. And we're going to talk about that this week. Because you see, without purpose, life has no meaning. Life has no reason. Life has no passion. I was in Brazil some years ago, and I was visiting a beautiful little town in the mountains. And I was walking through the street fair, and I saw these paintings, beautiful paintings on the street. They were selling them. And sitting next to the painting was a man with no hands. And so I'm figuring this guy is sitting here kind of watching the stall for someone. And I said to him, I love these paintings. I'd like to buy one. And he said, sure, you can buy one. I said, where's the artist? And he said, I am the artist. And I looked at him, and he had no arms. And he was sitting on the ground with his legs crossed in the dirt, no arms. I said, that's impossible. How can a man without arms paint such beautiful landscapes? He spun around because he knew I was looking at him in a strange way, and he smiled. He took his toes and picked up a painting brush with his toes. He dipped it in the paint, and continued to paint a half-finished painting with his feet.
Oh, my goodness.
And there is man finishing these fantastic paintings with his feet. I stood there a few minutes. I was in shock. I was bewildered.
Yeah.
I was confused. Yeah. And I looked at my arms. And I realized there are people with 2 arms and they've never produced anything.
Like that.
This man with no arms is one of the top artists in Brazil. I bought 2 of his paintings that day. One of them is hanging in my office in my house, the other in my office in my headquarters. Because I wanted to remember that even if you don't have arms, there's a reason for your life.
Yes.
This man found his
He
purpose
found his purpose.
arms.
Yes.
Sometimes people say, you know, well, if God loves everybody, why is this person born without arms? Why is the person born without eyes? Well, Helen Keller, you know what she says. Helen Keller says, she was born blind.
Yes.
She says, there's nothing worse, she said, there's something worse than being blind, and that is having sight without vision.
Yeah.
There are people who have eyes, but they can't see.
Right.
Yes.
They have no vision for their lives.
Right.
They have no purpose for their lives. So that artist impacted me. And I walked away from Brazil saying, I'm going to maximize my arms for the rest of my life. I'm going to use everything I have, because this man is not letting his handicap become a handicap. And he's becoming a very wealthy man with no arms.
Yeah.
And so this man found a purpose for his life. And I want to say this to you, that nothing is worse in life than death of a dream. Here's a thought I want you to think about. The wealthiest spot on earth, and I always say this, is not the gold mines of South America. It's not the oil fields of Iran or Iraq or Kuwait. The wealthiest spot on earth is not the diamond mines of South Africa and those watching us down there. The wealthiest spot on earth is not the uranium mines of the Soviet areas. But I found the wealthiest spot on earth, Dave and Barbara. I found it. And I found it years ago. I found that the wealthiest spot on earth is not too far from your house. As a matter of fact, most of us pass the wealthiest spot on earth every day. It's the cemetery. Why is the cemetery so wealthy?
Why, Miles? You were waiting for you baited me to ask you that question.
You know, the cemetery is the wealthiest spot on earth because buried in the cemetery are books that were never written. The graveyard is filled with music that was never played.
Oh, boy.
The cemetery is filled with songs that were never sung. The graveyard is packed with poetry that was never read. The graveyard is filled with businesses that never opened. The cemetery is filled with ministries that never got started. The graveyard is filled with dreams that died as nightmares. The cemetery is filled with visions that never became reality. The cemetery is a wealthy place because in the cemetery are buried great women who died as prostitutes. The cemetery is filled with great men who died as drug addicts. When I think of the cemetery, I think if you could mine the cemetery like you mine a gold mine, you'd be a wealthy person. And this program today, my hope is that for the next 5 days, we will help people not take their wealth to the cemetery. I believe God sent this program into your life right now. And as we sit here, Dave and Barbara and myself, we want you to make an appointment to be with us for this whole week, because we're going to talk about the fear. I have a fear. I came to this program today, and I'm here all week because my greatest fear is that you are a candidate to add to the wealth of the cemetery. When you write the poetry you were born to write, then you are releasing your true self.
If you call right now with your seed of $50 to the Inspiration Networks, you will receive the second book from the Miles Monroe Destiny Collection, The Glory of Living, Keys to Release Your Personal Glory. This book and the study guide will open your eyes to the glorious life God has destined for you.
Decisions may vary, but destiny is constant. Wealth in a cemetery is critical, and that wealth is called potential. And we're going to, you and I are so driven, our lives are so focused, because we've discovered our purpose. Purpose makes your life precise. It gives you a reason to not even need an alarm clock. Because life wakes you up when you